Howdy. After an exciting come-from-behind and overtime win against the University of Arkansas Razorbacks at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, the Texas A&M football team returns home to Kyle Field to take on another SEC Western Division foe. It is the Bulldogs of Mississippi State who come calling tonight. The Fighting Texas Aggie Band steps out with their sixth new drill, and we'll bring that to you at the end of this broadcast. Before that, we'll have our weekly cadet report and new feature stories about Texas A&M. And now on behalf of our corporate sponsors, BJ's Restaurant and Brew House, as we celebrate this, our 21st consecutive season broadcast, this is the Texas Aggie Band Show. We begin each broadcast with our weekly cadet report, and to get an introduction to this week's subject matter, let's get that from Jessica Hoffman, class of 16, our cadet correspondent. Jessica?
This segment features the latest news about a cadet within the Corps of Cadets who has a special story to share. Since 1964, women have been admitted into the university, but it was not until the late 1970s that women were allowed to join the Corps. Since that time, females have had numerous leadership positions at both outfit and major unit level. Yet history was made yet again this spring when a female was elected as cadet commander for the entire Corps of Cadets. Let's meet Cadet Alyssa Mahawkey, class of 2016.
My mom's always been an inspiration to me. She was valedictorian of her high school class, National Merit Scholar, President's Endowed Scholarship recipient here at Texas A&M. And so I knew I had a lot to live up to in terms of my mom, and so I always wanted to kind of make her proud. I really didn't know a whole lot about the Corps Cadets coming into it. I knew they woke up early, they worked out, they wore a uniform to class, and the freshman year would be pretty challenging. But other than that, I really didn't know anything. But I knew that it would be challenging. It would mold me into a leader who would be able to be successful out in the real world whenever I got out, and that's what really drew me to it. I really didn't make the commitment until they upped my scholarship offer a few $1,000s actually. When I get out, I do want to go into offshore platform design. I'd like to work for a consulting firm that helps do these platform designs or analyze these designs. I want to get into the project management side of things as well, which is why I'm seeking a certificate in project management. Oil market's going a little bit down right now, but hopefully it picks back up so I can get an internship this summer and then start my career. I think I may have made a small impact being the first female Corps commander, and if I inspire one girl to come join the Corps, even if it's just for a few days, and they can learn a few valuable life lessons out of it, that's great. And I'm glad to see a boost in our numbers of females because Texas A&M University, we're 51% female, 49% male, and that's not reflected in the Corps, which I know whenever it gets that number, but it's definitely great to see the female numbers up on the rise.
Thanks to Cadet Mahawkey for joining us this week. Each week at this time, we'll have a trivia question about either the Aggie Band or Texas A&M University. On the screen now is the fifth question for the season, brought to you by our sponsors, the Texas Aggie Corps of Cadets Association. Stay tuned for the answer at the end of our broadcast.
And next week we'll have another outstanding cadet we'll feature on the show, and his name is Patrick Steskens. He comes to us from the Netherlands to join the Fighting Texas Aggie Band this fall. And next up, our story about Guyan Hall here on the campus at Texas A&M. For our first feature story this week, we asked our cadet correspondent, Jessica Hoffman, to stop by the studio and give us the history of Guyan Hall.
In today's fast-paced and electronic world, as students enrolled here at Texas A&M University, we have a number of ways to entertain ourselves or to be entertained. One only needs to look at the MSc Complex or the program MSc Opus, and pretty much any day walking across campus, you can see a number of student organizations, musics, films, and all sorts of opportunities outside the classroom. Turn back the clock to nearly 100 years, and the cadets enrolled at A&M College of Texas had limited entertainment opportunities, being isolated, and they welcomed in a new hall that played a big part in their social life. The building, Guyan Hall. Guyan Hall was an auditorium that had a capacity of 2,500 seats. Prior to its opening in 1918, its predecessor was the Assembly Hall, built in 1889, that had seats for approximately 1,000 people. Owing to the events of World War I, the Assembly Hall was actually being used as an armory at the time that Guyan Hall became a part of the A&M campus.
Guyan Hall was actually named for John Isaac Guyan. He was actually a judge and a member of, and then finally president of the board of directors at Texas A&M. He actually was the president from 1914 to 1918, and he was actually the son of a Mississippi governor and left there to come to Texas. The inscription over the main entrance to this hall was from William Shakespeare's King Henry VI Act 4, Scene 7, which said, "Ignorance is the curse of God, knowledge the wing by which we fly to heaven." This statement over the entrance to this hall was a favorite of President William Bazell, and his hall, Bazell Hall, was right across the street from Guyan Hall, and he often referred to it. In fact, we as cadets had to memorize this saying as part of our campusology.
According to a January 1996 issue of Texas Aggie magazine, Guyan Hall had 6 columns. It was a replica of the Parthenon, the temple that stands on the Acropolis overlooking Athens, Greece. The building anchored the south end of Military Walk. It was demolished in the early 1970s, and Rudder Tower took its place. The building hosted concerts, movies, military commissions, and commencement ceremonies. It became the hub of campus entertainment. It was also one of the early locations of the A&M College School, later known as A&M Consolidated.
Guyan Hall was a classic design building, but for its time in 1915, it was actually not air-conditioned, so a lot of events were held in the cool of the evening. Most oftentimes, it was too small for the population of Bryan and College Station and the A&M College of Texas that included up to 8,000 people in the overall population. But it served numerous opportunities, including showing films, and one of the most famous was We've Never Been Licked, the story of Texas A&M during World War II. Texas A&M saw the Guyan Hall as its cultural advantage, and in fact the Aggie players, under the direction of the late C.K. Eston, known as the voice of Kyle Field, put on many plays that poked fun at the cultural isolation that was the A&M College of Texas.
One former student was quoted as saying, "It was an old, outdated, hard-to-renovate building sitting on prime real estate, but I'm glad I got to experience it." As the building was undergoing its demolition from 1970 to 71, some ambitious fish in the Aggie band snuck in under the construction fence and hauled off the capitals to the front columns. For doing this midnight requisition, they earned junior privileges for a week, and for the next decade or so, the remnant of the building was passed down among cadets living in Dorm 11.
During the decade that Guyan Hall was open, saw the establishment of many new buildings on the A&M campus, and in fact, Texas A&M named their first campus architect. It was F.E. Gasecki, and he was followed by the naming of a landscape architect, F.W. Hensel.
The second campus architect was Roland Aldisberger. In addition to Guyan Hall, during this period, the following facilities were constructed and added to the campus, many of which are still in operation. Nagel Hall, the Civil Engineering Building, 1909. Leggett and Milner Halls, 1911. Academic Building, 1912. Bolton Hall, the Electrical Engineering Building, 1912. Sabisa Dining Hall, 1912. The YMCA Building, 1913. Bazell Hall, 1914. And Francis Hall, 1918. These structures marked the departure from the Victorian and Second Empire buildings to the classicalism that would define the architecture of the campus over the next 2 decades. These buildings were classical in composition, proportion, and rhythm.
In 1915, exactly 100 years ago, Texas A&M had its first campus master plan, and for the next 25 years, the development of the campus was guided by this plan. Included in this was the development of new academic buildings to the east part of the campus, the quads, or living quarters for the Corps of Cadets, a new street system, and Military Walk being constructed from Guyan Hall all the way north to Sabisa Dining Hall. We hope you've enjoyed looking at Guyan Hall, this historic structure that once was part of the Texas A&M campus. And now, after these messages from our sponsors, we'll be back to look at campus monuments across Texas A&M dedicated to those who have served our nation. When you're here on the campus of Texas A&M, you can see the tremendous growth in the facilities, included in which is, of course, the redevelopment of Kyle Field that's been taking place over the past 2 years. But you can also look at academic buildings, such as the Interdisciplinary Science Building or the new Liberal Arts Building. In fact, we also have 2 new living quarters that have been delivered in the last 2 years, one of which just opened at the start of this fall season. But yet, as I walk across this campus during the quiet moments of the week, I see monuments that are dedicated to the men who have given their lives in service to our country, and they often go unnoticed, but they are important to the history of this university. We've asked our campus correspondent, Jessica Hoffman, to bring us the history and meaning of these monuments.
The flagpole at the Academic Building. This flagpole dominates the west plaza of the Academic Building. A gift from the A&M senior class of 1929, it announces any Silver Taps. Silver Taps is the student body's final tribute paid to an Aggie who, at the time of his or her death, was enrolled in undergraduate or graduate classes. The notice is posted at the base of the flagpole in front of the Academic Building. The flagpole at the Administration Building. The white cement base of the flagpole in front of the Administration Building was a gift from the class of 1934. 3 sides contain figures depicting the components on which Texas A&M was founded: military, mechanics, and agriculture. The military is represented with a soldier. One woman holding a wheel portrays mechanics. Another woman distributing seeds from a satchel and standing on wheat illustrates agriculture. The fourth side lists all the college presidents from 1876 to 1934. The bottom of the base forms a star, allowing the monument to function as a bench, although this function is rarely used. The World War I Monument. Located at the northwest corner of the Simpson Drill Field near Albritton Tower, it was dedicated by the classes of 1923, 24, 25, and 26, in recognition of the participation by the then Agricultural and Mechanical College of Texas in World War I, and of the heroic sacrifices made by Texas A&M cadets who lost their lives during the war. In addition to this granite monument, there are 52 trees at the base of which are stone markers around the Simpson Drill Field, and there are 52 flags flying over Kyle Field at each football game. The Spanish-American War Monument. A memorial at the south entrance of the Sam Houston Corps of Cadets Center is dedicated to the students, alumni, and faculty members who served in the Spanish-American War from 1898 to 1902. Incomplete college records indicate that at least 89 men with ties to A&M were in the war, according to Texas Aggies Go to War by Henry Detloff. The American Memorial Association established the memorial in 1953. The inscription on the monument reads, "In memory of students, officers, and faculty of the Agricultural Mechanical College of Texas who volunteered to serve the United States of America in the Spanish-American War, 1898-1902, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Philippines, China, erected by American Memorial Association Incorporated, 1953. Freedom from Terrorism Memorial. The campus memorial is dedicated not only to those who lost their lives on 9/11, but to those who gave their lives in the fight against terrorism. Dedicated in 2008, it is a tribute to not only all the people who died during the September 11th, 2001 attacks, but to Aggies who died that day and during the war on terrorism. The concrete monument also stands as a reminder of Aggies working to protect America's freedom. It was designed by 4 Texas A&M architecture students and was a gift from the classes of 1968 and 2003. The memorial is located at the corner of Coke and Lubbock Streets, close to the core quadrangle. According to the plaque, the 22-foot-tall vertical walls represent the 9/11 attacks' impact on American culture and people's recovery. The larger segment bears a plaque with A&M President Robert Gates' closing remarks on December 8, 2006, at a student farewell before his appointment as U.S. Secretary of Defense. The gap in the design represents people who died to protect freedom. The rough texture of the materials on one of the walls is for the scarring of the American people. The rows of 12 cubes signify the 12th man and the Aggie spirit, and a reminder of those who died fighting terrorism and continue to protect our country.
Probably the greatest memorial here on the campus is that of the Memorial Student Center right across the street from Kyle Field, dedicated to all Aggies who have given their lives in defense of our nation. There is a plan underway to take the Spanish-American War Monument and the World War I Monument and move them to the front of the core living area so that they're easier to find and more readily available to visitors here to the campus. And I think that's a great idea, because it also pays tribute to the fact that every man named on these monuments was a former member of the Corps of Cadets. And I challenge all of us, whether we're current students or former students or just visitors at Texas A&M, to pause and take note of the sacrifices made by these people to preserve the freedom of our nation. And now, after these messages from our sponsors, we'll bring you complete coverage of the Fighting Texas Aggie Band's 5th new drill of the year. That's up next here on the Texas Aggie Band Show.
Howdy! I am Stephen Sharp from Butte, Texas, majoring in political science. On behalf of the senior class of 2016, my buddies here in the mellophone section, here now is a halftime drill. The Fighting Texas Aggie Band at the Texas A&M University versus Mississippi State football game at Kyle Field. Hey!
Thanks for watching our broadcast. On the screen now is the answer to this week's trivia question, brought to you by our sponsors, the Texas Aggie Corps Cadets Association. When we come to you next, it'll be when Texas A&M returns to action right back here at Kyle Field, and it'll be the fabled and storied football program, the Crimson Tide of the University of Alabama, who come calling on the Aggies. We'll be here to bring you complete coverage of the Fighting Texas Aggie Band's 6th New Drill of the Year, as well as a new weekly cadet report and 2 new feature stories about Texas A&M. And now on behalf of our corporate sponsors, BJ's Restaurant and Brew House, as we celebrate this, our 21st consecutive season of broadcast, this has been the Texas Aggie Band Show.